By the mid-1960s, Iran stood at a crossroads. Under Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the country was modernizing rapidly. Oil wealth funded infrastructure, universities, and military expansion. Women gained the right to vote. Land reforms reshaped rural power structures. To Western governments, Iran appeared stable, even progressive. But beneath the surface, dissent was growing. For many clerics, modernization came at the cost of identity. Secularization felt imposed. Western alignment felt humiliating. Political participation remained tightly controlled. Among those absorbing these tensions was a young cleric from Mashhad, Ali Khamenei, the White Revolution and its consequences. In 1963, the Shah launched what he called the White Revolution, a series of reforms designed to modernize and centralize Iran. Land redistribution weakened traditional elites. Literacy campaigns expanded education. Industrialization accelerated. Yet reforms were top-down. Political parties were restricted. Opposition was surveilled. Dissent was contained. Clerical networks, long influential in Iranian society, viewed the reforms with suspicion. Ruhollah Khomeini publicly condemned the Shah's policies, framing them as capitulation to foreign powers and erosion of Islamic values. Mass protests erupted in June 1963. The state responded decisively. Demonstrations were crushed. Khomeini was arrested and later exiled. For Khamenei and other young seminarians, this was a turning point. The confrontation between mosque and monarchy had become irreversible. The culture of surveillance. The Shah's intelligence service, Savak, expanded rapidly. It monitored sermons. It infiltrated universities. It detained critics. For clerics engaged in political discourse, surveillance became routine. Khamenei's sermons increasingly addressed themes of injustice and sovereignty. He avoided reckless provocation but did not retreat. He was arrested multiple times throughout the 1960s and 1970s. Detention was rarely prolonged, but it was frequent enough to establish a pattern. These arrests served two purposes. For the regime, they were warnings. For Khamenei, they were confirmations. The state, in his view, was not reformable from within. It was structurally opposed to Islamic governance, networks of resistance. Unlike later revolutionary figures who became public symbols, Khamenei operated within networks rather than headlines. He maintained contact with clerical circles in Mashhad and Qom. He built trust with students and activists. He engaged in theological discussions that emphasized political responsibility. His approach was disciplined. He did not seek spectacle. He cultivated reliability. In revolutionary movements, networks often matter more than fame. By the early 1970s, Khamenei was firmly embedded within anti-Shah clerical structures. Ideology takes form. Throughout the 1970s, Iran experienced contradictory realities. Oil revenues soared after the 1973 energy crisis. Urban centers expanded. Consumer culture grew. At the same time, inequality widened. Political freedoms remained restricted. Khamenei's rhetoric increasingly framed the monarchy as dependent on foreign powers, particularly the United States. He viewed Western cultural influence as corrosive. His ideological framework solidified around several pillars. Political sovereignty must be rooted in Islamic jurisprudence. Foreign influence undermines independence. Security structures are essential to preserve ideological integrity. Clerical authority must guide governance. These ideas would later define his leadership. The late 1970s momentum builds. By 1978, the Shah's authority was eroding. Economic mismanagement and political rigidity fueled dissatisfaction. Strikes spread across industries, especially oil. Demonstrations grew larger. Security forces responded forcefully, but repression only amplified opposition. Khomeini, now in exile in Paris, communicated regularly with networks inside Iran. Khamenei became part of the organizational machinery preparing for regime change. He delivered sermons that framed protests as religious obligation. He mobilized local networks in Mashhad. He coordinated quietly, avoiding unnecessary exposure. The revolution was no longer theoretical. It was operational. Collapse of the monarchy. In January 1979, the Shah left Iran. In February, Khomeini returned to Tehran to massive crowds. The monarchy collapsed within weeks. Government institutions disintegrated. Military loyalties fractured. Iran stood on the threshold of an entirely new political system. For Khamenei, this was transition, not triumph. Revolutions are fragile. The question was no longer how to oppose power, but how to build it. The struggle for control. After the monarchy fell, competing visions emerged. Secular nationalists sought a democratic republic. Leftist factions demanded socialist restructuring. Clerical leaders advanced Islamic governance. Khomeini's faction moved quickly. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was formed to defend the revolution. Revolutionary committees replaced many old institutions. A referendum in April 1979 established the Islamic Republic. Khamenei supported rapid institutionalization. He understood a lesson learned from years under surveillance. Systems survive through structure. The new state required security apparatus, ideological clarity, and centralized authority. Emerging national role. Khamenei's influence expanded. He became a representative of Khomeini to key institutions. He joined decision-making councils. He participated in shaping the constitutional framework. Though not yet among the highest-ranking clerics, he demonstrated administrative competence. He was not flamboyant, he was steady. And in times of upheaval, steadiness attracts trust. The hostage crisis and radicalization. In November 1979, militants seized the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. The hostage crisis intensified global isolation. It also strengthened hardline factions within Iran. Khamenei supported firm resistance to Western pressure. The crisis reinforced the revolutionary narrative. Iran was surrounded by hostile powers. Security and ideological purity became central priorities. Toward national office. By 1980, Iraq invaded Iran, launching what would become an 8-year war. The conflict transformed the revolutionary state. Military mobilization expanded. Sacrifice became national ethos. Security institutions consolidated power. In 1981, amid internal instability and assassinations targeting senior officials, Khamenei survived a bombing attempt that severely injured his right arm. Weeks later, he was elected president of the Islamic Republic. His rise from provincial cleric to head of government had taken less than a decade, but it was rooted in 20 years of ideological formation and network building. Closing monologue. Under the Shah, Ali Khamenei learned the language of opposition. He learned how surveillance operates. He learned how power centralizes. He learned that ideology alone is insufficient without structure. When revolution arrived, he was prepared, not as its loudest voice, but as one of its most disciplined architects. The monarchy had fallen, but Iran's most defining trials were only beginning. War was coming, and with it the forging of a leader shaped by conflict.